Hey folks, everything new under the sun. I spoke about tanks and planes going into Ukraine and the fact that Biden said that the definition of World War III is sending tanks and planes into Ukraine rather. And so I want to show you this clip here just to confirm here. So here we go.
The idea, the idea that we're going to send in offensive equipment and have planes and tanks and trains going in with American pilots and American crews, just understand, and don't kid yourself, no matter what you all say, that's called World War III, okay?
All right, so there you go. Biden himself specified what the definition of World War III is, and you could say that the detail is that sending tanks and planes with American troops or pilots, maybe that is the trigger for World War III. And as long as you put a Ukrainian in there, then it's not World War III. And they do have, I hear, two Ukrainian pilots in the United States going through various test flights to see what they might be proficient on so that they can deliver them. And the video from yesterday showed that France was sending some Mirage fighters there. So I think that's an interesting thing, and to hear the audio for yourself is very interesting. Now this is an interesting one, and I've got a couple of subjects here. And by the way, I can't cover everything. I don't think any person can cover everything. You need to be checking ZeroHedge.com. You need to be checking RaptureReady.com. There are so many things happening in every sector of the world of society, of economics. You need to pay attention to it all because it's all written of in Bible prophecy, and there's just too much to cover. But this is interesting. And this is kind of related to the January 6th, quote unquote, insurrection. And it's this is your hedge again. Geofence warrants threaten every phone user's privacy. So what did they do for January 6th? Well, they requested that all the phones in a particular area around, the capital there, everybody there involved was going to get checked out by the police force. It says the last time your phone asked you to allow this or that app to access to your location data, you may have had some trepidation about how much Apple or Google know about you. You may have worried about what might come of that or read China's use of data to track anti-lockdown protesters. What you probably didn't realize is Google has already searched your data on behalf of the federal government to see if you were involved in January 6th. Now, this ability for them to track all the phones, this has been around for a long time, ever since cell phone towers existed. Why? Because they triangulate your position based on the strength of your signal from your cell phone to the various cell phone towers that are around. So they know where you're going. And I will say to you, if you don't want to be tracked, don't take your cell phone or your iPad or your digital device anywhere. Did you hear what I said? Don't take your digital device, your cell phone, anywhere with you. Don't take it shopping. Don't take it to the movies. Don't take it when you go play your sports, your soccer, your hockey, whatever it is. Don't take it when you go for a ride to the beach or a family day somewhere. Don't take it anywhere because they've got a breadcrumb trail. They're tracking you everywhere you go. If you happen to get wrapped up in some sort of criminal event that's happening near your position, you may well be swept up in it, as were people on January 6th who were targeted specifically because their cell phone was in a particular geofenced range from the Capitol building. So don't take your cell phone anywhere. And some of you might say, well, that's kind of the whole point of a cell phone. Yep. So you may have to deal with some inconvenience unless you are fine with them tracking you everywhere. By the way, did you know that the mark of the beast is a system that the Antichrist will use to track and control everybody everywhere? You basically have a device that can do everything that the Antichrist is going to do on you at all times. Many of you even use it for paying, things like Apple Pay, for example, where you just touch your phone to the receiving device to pay for groceries, whatever it may be. What will the Antichrist use that for? Well, he'll rely on the fact that everybody has a digital device, this mark, whatever this mark would be, in your right hand or your forehead. And he will rely that on the fact that everybody has it and it's ubiquitous amongst the world population, so that he can shut you off and disconnect you from the economic system if he deems you a threat, trouble. If you're saying something the government doesn't like, they will simply shut you off. And this is exactly how they're doing it. They're going to track you everywhere. If you, for example, if there's a lockdown, martial law, and they tell everybody to stay in their houses and you go out with your cell phone for a walk, they're going to know it and they may get you for it. And the military of the US and Canada tracked cell phone users to verify if the pandemic lockdowns were successful or not. And they did that. And apparently that's completely legal. That's information you can simply purchase from the various providers to get that information. And so your military is tracking you, a law-abiding citizen, everywhere you go. So I'll just leave it at that. Over 40% of Americans think World War III is imminent. 43.4% of U.S. voters believe the country is on the brink of World War III. And of course, we've been talking about that. Many channels are, many people are paying attention, but people don't realize what it actually means. I think in North America and even the Western world to some extent thinks, you know what, it could never happen to me. It will never be so bad that I won't, that I'll lose my job, or that I won't be able to feed my kids, or that societal breakdown will occur. It will never be so bad that there will be violence and thefts and robbers on my doorstep. You know what? I'm out in the boonies. It will never be the case where things are so bad where people are coming out of the cities looking for any kind of sustenance, and violence will increase. It will never be the case. We live in a normalcy biased world where everything has been awesome for the last 50, 60, 70 years. And we can't conceive of a world where things, where people are desperate and there is, pretty much no Christianity left, no religion, no faith left in the West, North America specifically. 100 years ago, there was a lot of faith. So there was a lot of people looking out for each other and loving each other. Bible says in the last days, the love of many will grow cold. And that's because there's not going to be many faithful left in the last days. And that means it's going to be every man for himself. If someone is hungry, they're going to go take fruit from you. They don't care. They don't have morals. They don't go by the 10 Commandments. What is that to them? That's a religion that they don't follow. And so they make up their own rules. They are their own gods, and man wants to be their own gods. So yes, we're definitely headed to World War III, but I don't think North America especially really understands what that looks like and how bad it will get. I don't even understand how bad it will get. It's going to be unbelievable. It's going to be shock and awe. And I think the verse where it says men's hearts will be failing them for fear of things coming upon them is going to be very real, because people are just going to be so stressed out that literally they're going to have heart attacks because they couldn't have imagined the stuff that was going to come upon them. They're not used to a hardship, and certainly none of us are. So this is interesting. Gold and silver. Perth Mint out of Australia sold billions in diluted gold to China. I didn't even know this was a thing amongst big governmental organizations or mints companies like this. I thought we were beyond that. I guess not. I guess they can dilute gold and try and sell it to China. It's incredible. Who is ever going to believe that anything coming out of the Perth Mint is 100% anything anymore, or pure? No one. And not only that, the Perth Mint tried to cover this up. Over years, it says, we have periodically reported of the occasional gold bar discovered as counterfeit, including gold-plated tungsten. But most, if not all, have been third-party fraudsters, so kind of one-off events. This time it's different, however, as overnight reports via Australia's ABC News claims that the historic Perth Mint, what are they called? Not the koalas. I forget what the name of them is, but anyways, you can buy gold and silver from the Perth Mint, and it's valued. It's had a reputation for good quality, and apparently it is not anymore. It's facing a historic fine of a $9 billion recall of gold bars after selling diluted or doped bullion to China and then covering it up. Now, apparently, this is an accepted practice. Did you know this? In the industry, and it's apparently not illegal. So I don't know what 3.9 or 4.9 means on the bullion anymore, if that's believable or not, but apparently it's not illegal to do some of that mixing of metals. And are you really getting what you pay for at this point? You need to check it out. You need to look at your gold and silver and maybe do some weighing of that to determine if you actually have what you think you have in terms of value. So that's interesting. And as we go further in the last days, I think we'll find more cover-ups of gold because it's becoming more and more scarce. Countries are buying it up by the hundreds of tons. And in the last days, everybody's going to start counterfeiting it because they know it's the only true money. So when there's true money, real money, that's when the counterfeits come out because they know it's valuable and they want to sell something to somebody. So in terms of silver, this is interesting. Gold and silver is going to increase in price hugely. This assumes economic collapse doesn't come and there's great famine, which I think is all going to happen. Gold and silver is a good tool for taking you through an economic collapse, holding your wealth through it, but not necessarily helping you during it, unless maybe you can, for a little while, you can trade it for food or whatever. But if people are hungry, they're just going to want food, and you can't eat gold or silver. And the Bible does say at some point in the last days, people will throw their gold and silver into the streets. It won't be valuable anymore because people will be just desperate for food. There will be famine. And this is part of the four horsemen of the apocalypse in Revelation chapter 6. Go read the first number of verses, verse 1 to 6, I think it is, the four horsemen, and what they bring. War, famine, and economic collapse is what the four horsemen of the apocalypse bring. So this is all kind of pointing us in that direction. So silver demand was at record levels in 2022. It's dirt cheap right now, all things considered, although it is increasing in price. So if you want to get a hard asset that, should the Lord tarry, this may be something valuable to hold on to hold a bunch of wealth in a small space for use later. I would say hedge all your bets. Maybe have some gold, silver coins, but also have some food, also have some canned goods, also have some bullets and other things like that, which could be good for barter. And I will say alcohol, bottles of wine, bottles of vodka, not only good for people who like drink, and there may be a lot of people who would be willing to barter to trade for that in hard times, but also medicinally and for first aid. It could be good for cleaning wounds and doing other things. So there's lots of value in all that sort of stuff. And I would say hedge your bets, have a little bit of each, because you never know in the end what you're going to need, and nobody knows that. But anyways, silver production, solar panel production is going to use up all the silver reserves by 2050. That means the price of silver is going to absolutely skyrocket. And it is dirt cheap in relative position to gold right now. So silver is a really good metal to get and hold right now. And you never know, it could spike up any time now. I think we're moving into a time where we are headed to World War III. And whether it's the economic collapse that causes World War III or World War III that causes the economic collapse, I would suggest that the ultimate collapse will be caused by World War III, or will come in the middle or just after World War III starts. But I will suggest to you that maybe they took you to war in the first place because they knew the economic situation was not sustainable. And to distract you from that and to cover up or to put a veil over the economic collapse, they take you to war so that they can say, well, the economy collapsed because of the war, and now we have to take all your money as good citizens, and you have to give up your money for the good of the country and the good of the people, and sell everything that you have to keep the country going because you're a good patriotic citizen. Meanwhile, they stole all your money and they wasted it away. They built up debt on top of your head, and they're just extracting more from you during this period of apparent, patriotism, and maybe even requiring you to pay into the war effort, whether it be by taxes or otherwise, right? Conscription, for example. So it doesn't matter. One causes the other causes the one, etc. And once that happens, it's going to happen very quickly, and people are not going to be prepared. There will start being panic in the streets. People will be desperate. They're already removing food stamps that were put in place from the pandemic, and people are already saying the government's kind of trying to kill us because they're removing our food stamps. So many people are dependent on the government, and it just means that the government's going to fall all the much harder because so many people depend on them, and so many people are going to be helpless when this happens. Meanwhile, they should have been going out there, maybe getting jobs. Now, I'm not talking about the ones that are sick or have some physical disability where they can't do that, but certainly many of them could just be for lack of a better term, just lazy, and maybe they should be going out and getting a low-paying job. It doesn't, but the government does really incentivize people to take its money, and it gives lots of money to where it's almost easier to take the government's money than it is to get your own job, and a lot of people are doing that. And so the government is really incentivizing people to get on the government dole and getting them dependent on the government. And what can the government do at that point? Well, they can say, you know what, we're giving you this. If you don't do what we want, we'll take it away. There is the charts from the Democrats versus the GOP in terms of percentage of war there. So hard times are coming, and people will get desperate. And as people do get desperate, they will be searching for food. There will be increased theft. What's going on in Portland right now, where Walmart is pulling out all of its stores because of the theft? They're left with no more food. Who's going to open a store there? That means people are going to be starving. That's going to increase violence and poverty because the violence was already there in the first place, and the theft. And because of all this defund the police stuff that was happening, the police force doesn't have anybody. And because there's so much violence, the police that are still there are quitting because they don't want to be killed. They don't want to live in a world where they're in fear for their life all the time and people following them home and getting into gunfights every day. So they have no interest. That means the police force is decimated. There is violence and it's effectively every man for himself. And what is that the definition of? That's the definition of a Mad Max situation. And it doesn't have to go much farther before it is a Mad Max and run by criminal organizations and gangs and that sort of thing. So yeah, we're in the last days, and folks, again, I think most of us don't really understand what that's like, including me. I can't fully articulate how bad it is likely to get. I can't say it will get that bad, but I can't underestimate how bad it is likely to get when we do go into World War III. When the economic collapse, is visibly triggered in the markets, where the markets tank and people really start losing a lot of money. I was listening to, was it Colin Powell in front of the Congress, I guess, today, basically admitting that part of what they want to do is cause people to become unemployed. Why? Because that takes their purchasing power out of the economy, and that way there are there's less money moving around the economy, which makes things cheaper for everybody else because there's less demand for the same goods and services. That means the price can come down as people want to sell things, and that's their purpose. That's part of their purpose. Now they say it's unintended, but ultimately it's all part of the same game in terms of increasing interest rates and causing people to lose jobs so that there's less money floating around because they don't want to do other things like telling people to go work hard and not be so entitled for things. So anyways, there's a whole bunch of factors there, and that's a complicated situation, but yeah, I think we're going to World War III. I think time's going to get very hard. I think we're rolling right into what the Bible describes as the last days, and basically the beginning of the 7-year period, the four horsemen of the apocalypse riding, which I don't think we've seen yet. It's going to be shock and awe when that really does come down. But we're seeing the baby steps towards that, the birth pains, if you will, increasing in frequency and intensity. We're seeing examples of what is to come, small microcosms of what is to come, and trouble in the world. So, folks, I hope you know the Lord Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior. He's coming soon, and the Bible predicts all these things are coming to pass. And I believe it also predicts that we're going to be around for a bunch of this. Not the wrath of God. We're not going to be here for the wrath of God. But then the question is, when does the wrath of God start? And I believe it starts when the Antichrist is revealed. And he is revealed not at the beginning of the 7-year period, because if he is revealed, who's going to follow an Antichrist? If the whole world knows and he's revealed to the world as an Antichrist and an evil person, who's going to follow that? He is revealed when he sits on the throne in the third temple and declares himself to be God. He reveals himself when he declares himself to be God, sitting down on the throne in the third temple in Jerusalem. So that's the revealing. That's the revealing in Thessalonians, not the start of the 7-year period. And so we're going to be here for a lot of trouble, folks. And there's a great falling away, and I think a part of that that could relate to a rapture event, but I think it could just mean that there's going to be a lot of so-called Christians who fall away from the faith because they're seeing what's happening in the world. They didn't expect to be around for the hard stuff that's happening. And they say, you know what? I thought I was going to be gone. That means Christianity must be fake because I'm not gone yet. No rapture occurred. There must be no God. And they're going to fall away. They're going to lose their faith. And that's a scary place for people to be honest. And it's unfortunate because people didn't read their Bible and didn't recognize that all throughout the scriptures for the last 6,000 years, there has been persecution of the faithful, of Christ followers, of disciples, of Christians. There has been persecution. Now, some people live their whole lives and don't really see much persecution. But for the majority, at least through the last 6,000 years, there has been a lot of persecution. So don't be surprised when you see it. I'll leave it there, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.